And there we have it, another beautiful day here at the Baxter Effect Podcast. Your host, John Baxter. And today, as we've been on a roll, another important topic for everyone out there that may have questioned, may have realized, may even know, but we're going to bring it to you raw, live, and we're going to unpack some of the most important information that you've ever heard. We're going to talk about the invisible prison. The walls you can't see are the walls are the walls and the ones that you hold on to. So before we get going, like, share, comment, subscribe. We're pretty much on every platform, and there are people out there that need to hear this message. In these specific times, you'll realize that there's to make our communities and our lives and other people's lives stronger and better. It's all about wisdom, not the wisdom previously learned and taught about in the mainstream, but the common sense, the ancestral wisdom that we all have. And before we get going, I'd like to give a shout out to the sponsor, Anti-Aging Bed. Now, if you have a wellness center, a church, we have an opportunity for you, and it's been explosive. We've been putting healing where healing is, and that is in ministry, in healing places, including churches. So if this is you, save this podcast, send it over, share it, because what we're seeing is so many people of today are maximizing their little space that they have with healing technology. And so many people have found their life mission and purpose as health crusaders. And because of this cool and amazing mission, we have an opportunity for you. So we have a full system of healthcare and a full system, depending on what level you want to take it, to fill out a clinic, a hospital, an entire room, an entire wellness center. And we do it at a very affordable price. So you could live out your mission and purpose, helping everyday people with technology of today. Everything uses data. The data of today is our science. So just a little blip there. And as you know, we're going to go ahead and get going on this amazing topic today, the invisible prison. And one of the things you'll find with this is, could you imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing we've been living in a prison? In this prison that you're looking at, there's no bars, there's no walls, there's no locks. It's a prison made of your beliefs, your habits, your fears, your identity, the culture we live in, your expectations that people put on you. And the worst part, you don't even know that you're inside of this prison. This is the age of misinformation. Not only was it the age of miseducation, but this is the age of misinformation. And so many people want to hear this topic because the invisible prison, it may not feel like a prison. This is not something from the Matrix movie, but it sounds like this is coming from the Matrix movie, but it truly isn't. It's coming from truth and reality. And if you spend enough time there in today's world, nothing appears or seems as it is. And that's why we have these talks, and these talks that we have on the Baxter Effect podcast, some of the most interesting topics and talks that you'll ever find on the internet. And you ask yourself, well, there's different ways that people put us in a prison. And in ancient times, it was archons. And I don't know if those still exist or that is, but who built the prison that we perceive? Who built this, per se, matrix? You ask yourself, well, who taught you? And what does success look like? Who taught you what happiness is? And we oftentimes, well, what is health? Who taught us that? And who taught us what really failure means? These are all identity things. These are all things that you learn on as an individual. The school of hard knocks, the school of pain will teach you what this exactly is. You didn't inherit these, and oftentimes we did inherit these because of the way we were taught and the way this was pushed on to people. So with today's talk, the greatest obstacle to self-discovery is not just ignorance. It is knowing the illusion of the knowledge that you have. And that's what I always break down on this podcast is wisdom and truth. Truth, your truth, is more important than the, per se, scientific truth. And if you can string along enough truth for yourself, it'll be easier to understand mission and purpose, the reason why you're here, the reason why the things are the way they are. And which brings us to a couple things here. And I realized this a long time ago, but it took a while to break what this is down. Now, there are 5 different prisons. Fear is the first prison. Fear keeps us safe until you feel small. And then when you're small, you're just living in fear. Another prison is the prison of identity. It's just this way. It's always been this way. And that's the story we often hear. And another prison that we hear about is comfort. The comfort that we sometimes look for, it slowly becomes your captivity. And so, as this podcast goes, we always talk about growth being the optimal solution. And growth is the opposite of comfort. But comfort totally is a prison. It doesn't allow you to change. It goes for what's been always done. And it's never going to get you to that final destination. The other one is approval. Living for everyone else's opinion. And who hasn't been there? I definitely have been there. And when people called me crazy by being ahead of time, I wasn't crazy. I was just ahead of time. And for that reason, it was painful because approval meant so much to so many other people until approval meant nothing. The approval means nothing unless it follows your truth, your passion, your mission. And once it does, it doesn't really matter what anyone else says. And if you care about what other people think, you will always be their prisoner. So isn't that the truth? And how well does that go with the topic today? And that's a Lao Tzu quote. The other last one, when we talk about health, is the prison of our biology. If we have sleep deprivation, pain, inflammation in our body, stress, it becomes the invisible prison that guards everything. So there are the 5 per se prisons that will control your life. And we're trying to pull back the veil today. We're trying to get a little deeper than the average everyday person that wants to speak about surface topics, right? If you want a surface topic, this is probably not the perfect podcast. We keep diving deep and we keep going deeper because in the end, The truth is all that matters. And today, of course, we're going to talk about that first prison, the prison of health. Did we not just get over COVID? But what if, the prison that we often find ourselves prior is poor sleep, slow recovery, chronic inflammation. This is a prison. And believe me, when I broke my neck and it took a long time to figure out, that prison lasted over a decade, almost 2 decades. The prison of pain is a prison where you look at the ceiling and you can't sleep. And it's been a decade before you even noticed that you were different, that you were living with this excruciating pain. And it's definitely a prison because it affects your mind. And it's not just your health problems. What if it's keeping you from becoming who you could become? This is where you come in, because my pain, my prison was my pain. And that was the toughest prison to escape from. Because if you're not solving your pain, if you're not even listening to your pain, check out some of my other podcasts on how you can listen and see and feel and do something about. But I've told this to tens of thousands of people. If you're so familiar with pain that you've normalized it, you're living in a prison. It's when you start accepting and looking at your pain, the day that you start looking at your pain and feeling the pain, you start to grow. You start to realize that why, that big why question. And physical pain and physical health is so important. And I want to thank you guys for joining the podcast today. Thank you guys for showing up. We've got just some really good fans over the years, some really good people that are interested in health. So thank you for joining. Please like, share, comment. We will be getting to your questions here shortly. And as we get through this next level, the next amazing understanding that we're going to shoot towards is the prison in your mind. So your prison could be, you might be replicating what you've seen. You might say, I can't, I'll never, I'm not good enough. And that's how it's always been. I was told I'm never good enough, so I'm not. I'm told that I'm a failure, so I emulate failure. But those aren't true facts. That's a prison, and those are prison walls. And so the prison for your mind is like everything: the physical body, the mind, and if you can escape these two massive prisons, you can break out of this per se illusion. And the other prison we talk about is this new political prison. Man, if you want to know what's going to happen in World War III, do you guys want to know what happens in World War III? World War III is inches away. And that's why I have to speak out today, because World War III is a political prison in the form of religion. All the religions believe that they are right. And every religion is nearly taking political sides. And when you look at what the purpose of religion was to begin with, it's nothing to where it is now from where it started. Everything is very political. And even though you may feel that you're right and that someone else is wrong, it's really the perception of both religions not really fulfilling their end of the bargain. And they could have, and I'm not saying one is right or one is wrong, but what I'm saying is the political prison and the political side that religion is taking, realize it's going to lead to World War III. That's what I'm saying. In someone's mind, let's say you're the bad guy. You think you're right. Is that not the political prison that I'm talking about? So just realize it's another prison. So I'm not taking sides here, but talk about both parties. Talk about how one party owns the news. Talk about how one party injects everything on social media and has free rights and reign over everyone's opinion, and how one has no reign, has no rights, and just takes a beating. Think about how these algorithms work. They're just creating an echo chamber, and it's part of a way to control and put you in a prison in your mind. So now that I've talked about how religion is doing it, now they've broken it down even into your political realm. So we have liberals and conservatives both thinking that it's something they can say can change the other, but they've created such a prison in their mind to break out of. That's why you got to respect Donald Trump, and in the sense that he was the first one to tamper with what I'm suggesting, and that is to show people that they have been a prisoner from the media they watch. They have been a prisoner to what they perceived as what they believe. Now, call it human psychology, but call it social engineering. And social engineering is what, guys? A prison. Now, okay, I got a great one here. Thank you, sir. Bing Now says, well, isn't it ironic that on our money we say God we trust? Does everyone's money in the world have God we trust on it? Ask yourself, is that the same God that fights for good? Which God are they talking about? Is this the God that punishes, or is this the God that heals? So realize I have something to say about that currency, but why is there a pyramid on the currency? Right? It's just like, you wonder why? Because we would all revolt. Let's just say we would all revolt if there was a Queen of Elizabeth on our currency. So doesn't it make sense for them to give us a pyramid? The banks are owned by a different country, guys, so that's another prison in all itself. But what I can say is it's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain these types of thoughts. And you can entertain these thoughts likely without accepting them. Because if you can entertain a thought without accepting it yourself, you have just gained like 100+ status on your wisdom. Because if you can't think in terms of pros and cons, if you can't do your research, if you just look at an article and read the first couple lines of sensational news as your criteria, then you're doomed. You are doomed in this world. And that's why they've always attacked a person that's an educator. Someone educating from the get-go the truth. It's kind of like one of the people that's helping people escape from this prison. And I ask yourself, well, if you want to know how do you escape, well, the prison, um, the prison that we've created in our minds isn't open to the outside. It gets unlocked from within. Isn't that the story of all time? The prison that we have is the prison we put on ourselves. You should check out my last podcast. And as we can see, we can unlock with this prison from the wisdom we have inside. And when we think about this, it's all internal. It's all an illusion. And that's why you can unlock the prison within inside yourself. What if everyone was telling you, you're wrong, the sky is pink, and everything you have learned and measured and gathered and strategically thought was that the sky was blue? This is the level of deception, indoctrination of which you have lived in since you were born. So it just makes sense to, give yourself this type of wisdom and gain strength, because when it comes to your soul's purpose, you're never going to find it. It's going to come to you. But if you feed it the wrong things, you're going to be sucked into materialism. And that's kind of one of the directions towards establishing a way to indoctrinate people. So, you always have questions on the recovery and in your health and how you can get to the next level. But I got to say this, maybe freedom isn't about what someone gives to you. Maybe freedom begins the moment you question the walls in which you have accepted. Maybe the prison door has never been locked. The strongest prison isn't made of steel. It's made of the beliefs you've never questioned. And that's why this is one of the biggest topics of today. Now, I got to say, before I did this podcast, I wasn't sure if this is the direction I wanted to go. For one, I wasn't sure if this is the direction I wanted to go because, this is a much deeper truth. And I've always hung out near the cliff. One leg on, one leg off. If you've ever read my book, The Medbed Story, How to End Human Suffering, all the different topics of why they chose Sigmund Freud over Carl Jung, why they chose Edison over Tesla. The stories keep going back and back and back before you were even born. Why they chose Big Pharma over natural medicine. Why they chose fake foods and GMOs and pesticides over natural foods. And time again, you see social engineering. You see healthcare engineering. And if you just blindly believe whatever they tell you, I would say the fluoride that you're drinking is working. And it doesn't help to be sarcastic. It doesn't help anyone to belittle. It doesn't help anyone. And that's why on this podcast, the wisdom that you can receive in this short amount of time, and I think we're going on 25 minutes, so there's only 5 minutes left. I want you to think about this. Now, just the invisible prism that we have conjured up. Is it yours and yours alone? Or has everyone around you accepted the same prison? So I don't know how many of you out there are considered the black sheep in your family. But I can honestly say, even though I wasn't seen as a black sheep when I was growing up. I was more of a quiet sheep, accessing and being aware of everything going on. That it wasn't until I realized that that type of comfort, it was draining. It was tiring. It wasn't going to get me where I needed to go. What you see typically um, all around us is that we're just being led like stray dogs, essentially, to the sacrifice, the sacrificial lamb. That's what we're acting like. And so, if I could say anything today, it would be, I would say take a deeper look into what I'm suggesting. I'm not saying I know it all. I've been telling everyone I've been a student of life. I'm just not going to suggest that I'm anything more or less. But I think innately we all have special gifts. And someone's special gift may be over here, another one over here, another one over here, and another one over here, wherever they are. But they're never going to find that. They're never going to see the truth if we all look like slaves to a system. We're not all thinking the same. Now, I may not look Asian, but when I was growing up, everyone thought I was Asian. And they always said, I'm just half British and I'm half Thai. But I never assumed I was either one. I never thought I was one or the other. I just assumed I was a human being. And that really made me question reality quite a bit. To be judged by my skin, to be judged by my language, to be judged by all these things, I had always questioned why this was. And so please keep that in mind. And the more I was watching some of the stuff that I see today, man, are we not running toward a World War III where the people and the conglomerates that we per se join suggest that they're the right ones? Now, I got to say, I do believe in drain the swamp, end corruption, end fraud, bring justice back. Because without it, I had this thought the other day when I was just driving. Why would any of us that are so-called being good stewards or good human beings be infiltrated by fraudsters? We're fraudsters who don't work, who steal, who cheat, and who are per se getting the material pleasures of the royal family, when the average person works so hard. We do per se and try to do the right things. How is that in God's alignment, or per se God's alignment? You question a lot of things out there, and you just realize that, man, if no one says anything, if no one shouts to the rooftops if someone does bad, if no one is held accountable, we live in a prison. Some prison inmates get treated better, some prison inmates get treated worse. And I just don't think that per se God has it in store for the people that are trying to do good, that they will be the victims of some type of nasty life. So with only about 15 seconds left, I would say thank you guys so much for joining the Baxter Effect podcast. If anything, I made you question a lot of things. I did my job properly. And I like to say thank you once again. If you could share, like, comment this podcast, I'd really appreciate it. If you could subscribe, even better. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for joining the Baxter Effect podcast, and your host, John Baxter. Have a great day, everyone.